Well, hello there, everybody. Welcome to Prop Live. We have a guest this week.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
In fact, our last guest was the Downings, Beverly and Brett.
Yeah. That was a fun podcast.
Half of the team that worked on this fantastic costume. Look at that. Oh, this is the
That links you to the video.
to the Becoming Marvel video.
Yeah.
But you made Beverly's helmet.
If you click on that one, it'll take you straight to the helmet. Yeah.
Look at that. Coregeek.net is the place to go. Specifically, this really fantastic helmet. Nice. Now you sculpted that in clay, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Like
did.
a crazy person.
That's exactly. So when we were at Dragon Con, we met one of the guys that's like the main supervisor for the costuming for the movie. And he was holding my helmet, and he was like, "Wow, this looks really good." And I said, "Yeah, I hand sculpted that." And he goes, "You're crazy." And then he's like, "Yeah, because the ones we did for the movie were 3D printed."
Oh, yeah,
and I was like, "Yeah, I know, but I wanted to hand sculpt it." So
It's reasonable.
yeah, so certified crazy by Marvel. There you go.
Fantastic. For those of you who are unaware, just go over to coregeek.net and just give the gallery a browse and let it wash over you. One of the things I like a lot is a lot of your projects end up being collaborations, like Alice's gun or Alicia's blaster or the sword.
Frostmourne, yeah.
This was cool too. One of my favorites right there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Eric participated. Actually, it's
right
back
there. You can kind of see it.
Right there.
You can see it right there.
My Malcolm Reynolds pistol, the community build we did a few years ago. Eric made his out of wood.
Yeah,
awesome.
went back to my wood roots a little bit, and
yes. One of the things that Eric worked on in recent memory. Whoops, wrong thing. There we go. Is this sort of Athena? And I got a casting from you about a year and a half ago, and we are finally working on it.
Yes. Coming to YouTube near you.
Yeah. So we're working on a fun project. I'm finally gonna get my sort of Athena all painted up. It's about halfway done right now. Once we're done with this podcast, we're gonna go in and finish them up.
Yeah.
So look forward to that coming out super soon. One of the things that a lot of these projects has in common is molding and casting, which is today's topic. Yay! So any of the prop tarts who are hanging out with us down in the chat, if you guys are live, get your molding and casting questions ready. We'll be grabbing some from you. Or if we're chatting about something, you have a question about it, just holler at us in the chat. Just tag @PunishProps and we'll see it. What was the first, let's specifically say, first silicone mold that you made?
My first silicone mold was a mold for the Sif sword, which is probably right there.
This one?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
so.
that was the first one. The first item I had ever molded and cast.
Oh, and that's more of a gallery, and then we got a step-by-step over here.
Yeah. There's some real jankiness in there.
Let's get to the molding.
Yeah,
well,
it's
looks like
probably,
you kind of skipped over that a lot.
You might have to go down. Oh no, maybe I don't have any of the mold ones in there. I did. I was so embarrassed by it, I didn't even post it. I could have sworn I had some in there.
You know what's funny too is, and I specifically said silicone molds because the first mold I made was actually a urethane rubber.
Yeah.
I don't know why I went with urethane rubber. I was just at Tap Plastics and I was like, I need to make a mold, and they're like, get some urethane rubber. Sure, fine. For my Jim Raynor gun.
Gotcha.
And I have since destroyed that mold in every photo associated with it.
I think if I remember right, at the time, I only took like 2 pictures of the mold. Actually, I have a YouTube video of it. Of a demold of it.
Oh, good news, everyone.
It's really janky.
So, you can go subscribe to Coregeek on YouTube. Let's see if we can find this. We'll go on an adventure
together. You go under, there's a ton of Crafting Geek in there, so.
Yeah, well, I can just search for Sif.
Yeah, it should be in there. Yeah, I would think so. No?
Nope. Sword.
It might just be like D. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Right there.
There it is. So if you notice, there's only one side that has registration marks.
Uh-huh.
Because I had an issue of I used maybe the wrong kind of mold release. So it was supposed to work. It didn't. I didn't use the standard. I used some stuff I ordered off of Amazon instead.
Sometimes when you use the standard, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
And
We had a similar issue recently.
And so I ended up having to slice off the one side to get it to open all the way.
Yep.
So
Well, in an attempt to make you feel better, here is, I think this is the first set of silicone molds I made. Let me see if I can zoom in.
little itty bitty picture.
Is there
There
a
it
link
is.
for that, Bill?
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, zoom out. There we go. So I made this little Protoss pylon lamp
Well, look at that.
and made molds for it. Now, what do you notice about this mold in the upper right?
No keys.
No keys. But do you see these dark dots?
Yeah.
That's where the keys were
Those
supposed
were
to be,
keys. Oh.
but it totally locked together and I had to cut it
So
apart.
so you made them, but
did.
So
Yeah.
we had a very similar experience.
Yeah, same thing with some of these. So let me tell you this. I don't remember what or who, but at some point someone said, "Oh, you can use olive oil as a mold release." And I was like, "Sure, why not?" You can't. I think whoever told me that was lying.
Well, you can, but it won't release your mold.
No, yeah, oh yeah. I'm here to tell you right now, a spray can of mold release, it's like $10.
Yeah, it's your best
It'll
friend.
last you forever. Just spend the money. If you're gonna make a silicone mold, get the right.
Yeah,
mold
the thing
release.
that burned me is I thought I was getting the right thing.
Yeah.
I honestly thought I was using the right product, and it just didn't work for whatever reason.
I think that's a
Well, it only half worked, which is weird
Yeah.
because one side of it did work, but the
That's
other
weird.
side didn't. So
So, a lot of times you'll find people, whether it's a certain painting technique or molding technique or whatever, there's a product that they use, and when you ask them, well, why do you use that one over another one? And they're like, well, this one works, so I'm not going to, why experiment?
yeah,
right?
why do anything else? Yeah,
This one works as advertised, it does everything I needed to do, I'm not going to try something else. And I see that a lot, and especially in industry stuff, like in LA.
Yeah.
People like, just use this solution because it works.
It works, yeah, and you don't have time or money to figure out if something works better, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Or maybe it doesn't work better, and then you're out of the money for putting it, time and money for putting into that.
So, if you're looking at getting into molding and casting, which if you're watching this, you should consider it because it's a mighty powerful skill to have in your belt. I can't wear my hat properly. But the advice I usually give is get the proper materials,
Yep.
get silicone, get the right stuff, but start small. So this pylon thing, let me see if I can show you guys how small this thing is. This thing is small. It's a little desk lamp. There we go. So the final one is, I made a bunch
Oh
of
yeah,
them. and
it
I'm
is
sitting
quite
around
small.
them. Yeah. There's a slightly smaller. There we go. There's my little proton pilot lamps. Protoss pylon lamps. Hard-
Protoss
easy for you to
pilot
say.
lamps. There you go.
Funny story. I don't have one. I don't have the molds anymore, and I sold all the ones I had, so I don't even have one of those.
I have one of my Sif sword, but
Yeah.
I don't have the master.
Yeah.
Because the original, it was the first commission I ever did, and the deal was for just the sword. So I made the sword, and then I liked it so much I was like, I don't want to get rid of this.
Yeah.
And then I was like, maybe I can mold and cast it. Then I don't have to get rid of it, or if I get rid of it, I can make a copy of it. And that's how that whole thing came about. I wasn't even planning on molding and casting it when I built the master for it.
Yeah.
The client I worked for, I offered him 2 resin casts so I could keep the master, and he's like, nope, I want the master.
Aww.
So I was like, okay. I mean, so I don't have the master for it.
So, yeah, if you're looking to get started, it's best to start small, although you started with a giant sword.
I did, and it
Yeah.
took me 14 hours to clay it.
Yeah. That pylon lamp, let's say you're doing like a hand prop, like a pistol or something, you could probably get away with like 2 trial-size kits of silicone,
Yeah.
maybe, which would be like $50 or $60. So yes, that does sound like a lot of money, and it is, but there's no other way to get into it than to grab the right materials and give it a shot.
Yeah, and I way overestimated the amount of silicone I needed.
Yeah.
So I bought like $300 worth of silicone.
Still working through it?
Yeah, no, I used it all.
All right, good,
But the tops and bottoms of that were like an inch thick on both,
Yeah.
It's like super chunky.
Make it rain.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so when it was like not coming open and
Yeah.
I'm like furiously hacking into it like a surgeon. I'm just thinking, $300 down the drain.
Oh, yeah.
Ah.
As we're diving into this, I do need to point out that we have a great resource on punishprops.com for molding and casting. So we have a page. We'll link it in the chat, and there you go. Paige already got it, and we'll put it in the show notes. Thanks, Paige. Everything we do that involves molding and casting gets put here. So, for example, I did some molding and casting in this cyberpunk costume build, so that got linked in there. We did some mask molding and casting with our buddy Nick. Lots of really good examples of different types of molding and casting, but we also have a whole series. This one right here, it's currently got 15 videos in it. Molding and Casting 101, so there's a video on silicones, a video on resins. So if you're looking for a one-stop shop, which, by the way, all those materials are linked here, including mold release.
Wow, look at that.
Mold
release.
Right, this is literally like your one-stop shop for getting into molding and casting. So if you're looking to do your own research or just dive into it, start there. Let's see, $13.79 for one can of mold release, and that will last you for a couple of years.
Yeah, it goes far.
Yay. And that's this stuff here. By the way, the right mold release for silicone, where am I? Right mold release is something like this. The Ease Release 200, I've used this stuff for 10 years, and it's awesome.
Yep, I have a couple cans of it in my shop, too.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely the one we used on Paige's mold recently, and it didn't work for some reason.
Don't say what it is, though. It's still secret.
We don't know what happened.
What the heck?
That's as far as... Paige is working on a Secret Santa prop tart project.
I used mold release, but silicone did not care.
Something happened.
But the mold still turned out fine.
Good.
It still works.
Yeah. So actually, that's a really great point.
Yeah.
So the idea is for a two-part mold, you clay up one side, box it in, fill it with silicone, it cures, flip it over, pull out the clay, spray the mold release on any exposed silicone, and then pour your other side.
Yep.
Like that's the general process for that. If it doesn't work for some reason and the two halves of silicone lock together around your part, you can still cut the mold open. It's not as ideal, but you can do it.
Yeah, and even though my mold wasn't perfect, it worked, and I made a lot of copies of that sort.
Yeah. Now you can get a mold making key knife. You can buy one. This is an example. It's a blade that's got a little notch in it, so that when you cut it, it leaves a groove in one side of the cylinder, or on both sides, a groove and a peak and a valley in your mold.
Have you ever used one of those?
I made one.
Oh, okay.
So I took an X-Acto blade and I annealed it.
Yeah.
You gotta heat it up.
Heat it up to
so it won't snap.
So it won't break.
And then I bent a little U shape in it, so that if I have to cut a mold open, it leaves a little bit of registration, which is what we did on Paige's mold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, not the end of the world if that happens, but just be prepared.
Life's a little easier if you can get your mold apart.
Yeah,
though.
absolutely.
Well, it was cool to learn, because once upon a time, if a mold stuck together like that, I would have been like, great, I wasted all of that time, but it was fine.
Yep.
It was totally fine.
Turned out okay.
Yep. It can still work.
Yes.
Not
now,
ideal, but it can still work.
Now, if you're really starting off basic and small, then a one-part mold is a great place to start.
Yes.
So, for example, I have a Skyrim shield. Only this one is not from Riften or Whiterun. It's from Punish Props.
Punish Props. Look at
that. This was a one-part mold. So the master looked a lot like this. I glued it down, put a box around it, and then just filled it with silicone. Piece of cake. The bottom got sanded flush after it was cast. So if you're doing like a Judge Dredd badge, or anything that's flat where the back side doesn't matter, you make a one-part mold.
Easiest kind of mold to make.
Absolutely, and it's a great way to get started learning and getting comfortable with the materials.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have a video specifically on doing one-part molds. I think we did the Hearthstone symbol was cast like that. Yeah. Let's see. Pixel Prop says, do you always pour molds or do you do jacket molds too? So that depends on the type of mold you're making. If pouring the resin would create a huge block of silicone with a lot of wasted space,
yes,
because your form is very roundish, you might consider doing a brush-on mold or a matrix mold. So that helmet, what'd you do for your helmet?
It was my first brush-on.
Brush-on mold.
Yeah, I had never, been molding and casting for like 4 years. And It was the first brush on I had ever done.
And was it a brush-on one-part mold or
Yes.
two-part mold? Okay, so you covered the entire helmet with silicone.
Covered the entire
on
helmet.
first
I used Rebound 25.
pass. Yep.
So, and then cut a seam up the back. Well, I did a plastopaste mother mold over it. And then to remove it, cut a seam up the back and then just peeled it off. So I don't have any.
I'll go to your Instagram.
Yeah, there's work in progress on my Instagram. So tons of work in progress on my Instagram.
Oops, it's the wrong one. Coregeek, not the right one.
All of his social links are in the.
I'm
Yeah.
such a geek.
Too, by the way. in case
Hey, look at these guys.
Hey, look at those
It's
guys.
like that just
Yeah,
happened.
I know.
So
I
this
know.
is the clay,
Yeah,
which is
that's the
bonkers.
master compared to the
Yeah.
the final.
That's so
If you
cool.
click one more over, it'll take you to the
There you go.
yeah. So
But yeah, like that. There you go.
yeah.
So this
so
is
there's some of the brush on.
So you brushed on one layer and then brushed on another. Put some keys
yeah, I
on
ended
there.
up doing like 5 layers or
and
whatever.
then a multi-part jacket mold.
Yep.
Yeah, just
yeah.
like that.
And I used MDF as a separator for
Mm-hmm.
the jacket mold.
Very good. So yeah, who's Pixel Props had that question, and that helmets are a great example. They're round-ish. If you were to encase that whole thing in a block of silicone,
Yeah, that
it
would.
would be heavy. It would be
Heavy.
ridiculously expensive and needlessly
Yeah,
expensive.
very very expensive.
But for small parts, like a little badge or something, or like if you're doing a space gun. I'm gonna wait. Let's use this right here.
Doing a space
Like
gun.
this guy right here. This would be like if you're gonna cast it all as one piece, it would be probably a 2-part dump mold.
Yeah.
Like you clay it up, pour silicone on one side, and then do the other side. I probably wouldn't do a brush on mold. It's fairly flat. There aren't a lot of rounded shapes where if I build a box around it, it's going to create a lot of negative space.
Yeah.
But that's the sort of thing that you'll really start to get a knack for as you start making more and more molds, especially as you make more and more bigger molds. Yeti GT, our buddy Alex in the chat says,
I say that's Alex, right?
yeah, he says, hear me out, just cast a whole Winter Soldier arm in one go with brush on silicone for a first project. Sure, yeah, just go for it.
Just do it, man.
But what you want to do first is get a life cast of the wrong arm,
I was gonna say.
which is what Alex did.
Make sure you're doing the
when
right
he
arm.
Came to the correct arm.
Wait, which one's the correct arm? The
Specifically.
left arm?
The left arm.
Left arm's the correct arm. The right arm's the wrong arm.
Yeah, we did a life cast of Alex's arm, and it wasn't until he was driving back home to Portland that we realized we had done the wrong arm.
It was a mirror version of Winter Soldier.
It's the left. I'm sure Alex knows for sure which one it is.
It's the left.
And we the same way with actually I have the little version right here. This is the alien assault rifle from District 9. I built a full size version of this, and it was our first Matrix mold. And in hindsight, I would have done my first Matrix mold should have been smaller.
Yeah,
Like
that was a massive
like-
Matrix mold.
this big, not 105 centimeters long.
I still haven't done a Matrix mold.
Ooh, you should come up with a good reason to make one. And
Yeah,
then we
let's-
could do it together.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I really want to learn how to do one.
Fantastic. Yeah. So, and then once you start getting more comfortable making smaller molds, making 1-part molds, move on to making a bigger 2-part mold.
Yeah.
A lot of the molds you've made, especially of swords,
Yeah.
are 2-part.
I've been
molds.
2-part molds. Yeah.
For example, the Sword of Athena, which we are painting today.
Yes.
Is that actually multi-part? Is the pommel separate?
The pommel is separate. So the
Oh,
the hole to pour the silicone in is right at the top of there.
Yeah.
And then the pommel separate. It's a separate little 1-part mold.
yeah.
So
So that's actually a really great example. You split it apart.
at a natural
Here
seam.
we go. The pommel is separate and 1 part.
At 1 part.
So
yeah.
you have a little dump mold that you pour and cast these. In
Yeah.
fact, you probably pour these, and whatever you have left over can get dumped in.
Yeah. Usually I have it to where
Yeah.
I have it set up to where I know how much to do to get both at the same time,
Right.
basically. If I'm quick enough. Sometimes 300 sets too fast.
You
So-
did the Toriel daggers.
Yes.
That's probably a better example.
Yes.
Because it's a lot smaller. Let's see here. Oh, you did a build post over on the RPF.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So let's take another quick look here. There's the whole thing.
Yeah, there's a whole write up there. on
There's
those.
all your sculpting.
You can
and
see the
there's
2-part mold there.
There we go. Ah, perfect. So you clayed it up,
Clayed it up. Yep.
half of it,
Yep.
put a box around it,
Yep.
put some registration in it, and then poured your silicone. And this is the opposite side.
That's the opposite side.
and
yeah.
this is the side you spray your mold release
That
on.
exactly. Yeah.
All the exposed blue, is that the tap RTV?
No, that's it's an outfit out of California.
Okay.
I don't remember. It was
Alright.
before I started using a lot of smooth on stuff.
Yeah.
So
And then you pour your silicone
Second
on the other
half.
side,
yeah.
and then you've got
Two
a negative.
halves.
So this has been split open. The master has been pulled out, and it's ready to cast copies.
Yep.
And we're back to the master.
Yeah,
Very good.
that's from the
super
the
cool.
master.
So that's the 2-part mold, and a dagger size project
Yeah.
is a really great place to get into to start again getting more comfortable with the techniques and materials.
Yeah, and this is a perfect example of necessity because she has pairs.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Oh yeah.
And it's so much easier to create a master cast and mold and cast it, and then you have 2. You know, instead of creating the same
And then
master
10,
twice.
and then
So-
1,000. And then things get crazy. I would say after that, maybe start experimenting with scale, with bigger things.
Yeah.
Helmets are pretty challenging. There are a lot of different ways to do it. In our, which video was it? The Hollow Mask. We actually did a matrix mold for that helmet. So if you're looking to get into that more advanced type mold making technique, then that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
What would you say is the most complicated mold or sets of molds that you've made?
I would just say that the wasp helmet is the most complicated one
Yeah.
I've done so far, because you have to do the silicone, then the outer jacket, and it's just there's a lot more steps to it than like a 2-part dump mold.
Right.
So
And you can do one that's a multi-part silicone and multi-part jacket mold.
Yeah.
Too. Yeah. This is
you're
going all
going
the
the
way back.
wrong
We're
way.
going
You're
the wrong
going
way.
the wrong way.
There we go. Huh.
That's the cast. So the only ones I have are.
I gotcha. Very cool. The District 9 rifle is probably no, actually, it's not true. It's definitely the biggest. This is definitely the most complicated
Is that just
series
because of
molds.
sheer amount of parts?
Yeah, there were 33 parts, I think. Why don't you want to sit the way you're supposed to? Okay. 33 parts, and it was like 28 molds. Some of the molds had a couple of copies in them.
Yeah.
But the main challenge with those was that the molds needed to be perfect. Because
you wanted to cold cast them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the idea with cold casting is you put a metallic powder in the mold before you put in your resin, and that metallic powder is on the outer layer.
Yeah.
And you can buff it, but you can't sand the seams or anything.
But
down.
you can't fix it.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it has to come out.
perfect.
So the mold has to be perfect.
Yeah.
And then it has to come out perfect.
Yep. Now those molds, I can cast anything out of it.
Yeah.
I don't have to cold cast them, but I have that option.
But for that cold cast option, yeah. So I did cold casts of the Sword of Athena, the first mold I made for it.
Yeah.
And it turned out perfect. It was a perfect mold. I mean, as perfect as I could make it, and I got great pulls out of it. And cold casting was so easy with it. I wore that mold out.
Yep.
I had to make another one. It didn't turn out nearly as good, and then I ended up just not making cold casts of it, just because there was enough flaws in it.
Yeah.
That it was just a little more than I wanted to sell to people for my comfortableness. So you definitely have to have a good mold to get good pulls for cold casting.
Yep. If your casts don't come out perfect though, then that's not a problem. You can always fix up your castings after they've come out of the mold.
Hello, Beverly and Jackie.
Hey, Jackie's here. Beverly's here. Hello, friends.
All the friends.
We got a question from It's a Trap. He says, "Is there any good way to add weight to resin cast, or is it best to switch to metals such as pewter?" More often than not, I'm trying to find ways to
make them
remove weight.
Yeah,
from
to make
it.
them lighter.
Yeah, you could just sink a metal rod in there before you dump it full of resin. You could just embed stuff in the resin. If
Yeah,
you
you
want.
could. You could.
But I'm here to tell you that if you got to carry whatever that is around at a convention, then you want it to be as light as possible.
The other thing too is you can add if you're doing a cold cast, even if it's not a cold cast, you could add metal powder.
Sure.
You could add metal powder to your resin, and that will weight it.
Yeah, just remember that metal powder is going to sink to the bottom while the resin cures.
Yeah.
Especially if it's a longer setting resin.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could add weight if you wanted to, but let me tell you this: the District 9 rifle I did, when I was casting it, I was in a bit of a hurry, so it's almost solid resin. The one that Tested has is almost perfectly solid, and it weighs about 17 pounds.
Oh my gosh, I didn't realize it weighed that much.
It almost weighs one Buddha cat. My cat weighs about 20
How do you weigh things around here? In Buddha cats.
Yeah, one Buddha cat. And it was horrible to carry around. I carried it for about 2 hours at San Diego Comic-Con, and it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, my arms got tired.
Yeah, that is a heavy
instantly.
prop. That is a
and
very
it's
heavy
not
prop.
just because I'm not in shape.
That's
a lot
just,
of weight to carry in your hands all day.
And you're carrying it like in front of you too, right?
Right. So what I ended up doing is, like, someone would want a picture, I'd haul it up, get the picture, and then there's no good way to set that thing down.
Yeah, because it has no good surfaces,
it's got all these
right?
pokey things on it, right? So I would put the tip of it on my shoe, like that, and let it rest that way until someone wanted a picture.
Yeah.
I like having this mini. I should have mini visual aids of all my props.
Yeah, right?
This is fantastic.
I know.
I'm working on printing a small version of my District 9, or my Blade Runner.
Your Blade Runner. That'd be
that'd be really fun. I want a tiny one, that big.
I do too.
Yeah. So yeah, usually making something lighter is the goal. It's a Trap says I was wanting to make weighted guild emblems to send to guild members, kind of like you do with Evan and Caitlin. Do it in Pewter. Like, do it exactly how we did it with Evan and Caitlin.
Yeah, just make
Pewter
it out of metal.
casting is so
cool.
satisfying.
It looks so cool.
Yeah,
and it's real metal.
it is. And you can get a Pewter patina to blacken it. Again, we did all this in Evan and Caitlin's video. We'll link it in the show notes. But yeah, give Pewter a try. It's really cool. And again, if you get like a high temp silicone like Mold Max 60, it'll work great for Pewter, but you can cast other materials in it too. Yeah. Let's see. We had. I think we're good as far as questions. Oh, here we go. TSIN Claire Black. Sinclair Black? I think I got it. Had a question. Do you have tips for a beginner on smoothing and cleaning plastilina out of a complete part? I do. I have a really great trick. So
I wonder if it's the same thing I do.
All right, I'll say it and you tell me if it's the same thing.
Okay.
So let's say I have a mold. I put clay on one side and then pour silicone on the other. And then the next day, once it's all cured, I have to pull that clay out. But I don't want the clay bits to get caught in the prop.
And sometimes you get remnants of it in
there.
Yeah.
So I'll take that. If it fits, I'll take it and put it in the fridge. The plastilina clay gets more rigid the colder it is, and when you pop it out, the whole thing comes out. You just got to go in with like a toothpick maybe and scrape up some remaining little bits. But what do you do?
I use so it kind of depends on what the master's finished with, but pretty much alcohol and those little pointy Q-tips.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of that in there. You got to be careful though, because it depends on like what primer or whatever you use. Sometimes the alcohol will dissolve.
It will dissolve it, yeah.
So,
but if you're using a catalyzed primer,
you're
good.
Yeah.
So I think I heard you earlier mention you've been using catalyzed primer.
I have since the Wasp helmet was the first catalyzed primer I've used. So
there's
I haven't really built much since, so I haven't had much chance to use it.
There are these little brushes you can get. Oh crap! Why can't I find them? Here
but the freezing tip's a good idea.
Yeah. These little brushes, they're actually made for eyelash micro brushes, or it's for putting glue on fake eyelashes. But these little brushes are teeny tiny. They're crazy cheap. It's $7 for 100 of them. These are really great for cleaning out your airbrush, but they're also awesome for grabbing little specks of clay out of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? I'll just grab a link and drop that in the chat for you guys. You got one? Paige has got us.
I think
all right.
have an affiliate.
Cool. So yeah, that was the question. Did we answer it? I think we did.
How do you clean it?
Smoothing, getting plastilina out of a mold. That's really good. one of the next, we haven't really done a comprehensive video on this yet, but pressure casting is like the next level.
Sure.
For getting castings that are just flawless. But the trick is you have to have a degassing chamber for when you're making the mold, so it doesn't have any bubbles in the silicone, and you have to have a pressure pot, a good one.
Two things that people often confuse.
Yes. One is for adding pressure, one is for subtracting.
Subtracting.
Yes. So the idea is when you're about ready to pour your silicone to make your mold, you mix up the silicone with the catalyst. It's ready to go. Clock is ticking. But before you pour it, you throw it in the degassing chamber, run that for a couple minutes to get all the air bubbles out, and then you pour it. Which is a good practice to do no matter what.
Anyway.
If you're gonna do, you're gonna do any molding and casting. Now
you have a vacuum chamber.
I know you have a pressure pot.
I know.
He has Jeff.
I have Jeff.
Do you have a degassing chamber too?
Yeah, I have a degassing chamber. So.
And though I would recommend just ordering them. I found my degassing chamber on eBay. Someone just makes them, and it was great. I got a pump from Harbor Freight.
I got mine from a kit from Best Value Vacs.
Yeah.
So and that's been great.
Yeah. So the reason why, a couple of reasons why you want to do pressure casting. Even a really good casting with good vents can still have these micro bubbles just under the surface.
Yep.
And you don't. You pull it out and it looks flawless. And then you go to sand.
You go to sand it a little bit, and it knocks all the tops
You go
off
down
of
like 1/10 of a millimeter, and suddenly it's bubble city.
Yeah.
And then your life sucks.
Yep.
With a pressure pot, when the resin is still liquid, you put the whole mold in the pressure pot. The pressure compresses those bubbles until they go into solution.
Yeah.
And then there are 0 bubbles.
Yeah.
It's kind of magical.
Yeah, I get those when I'm making the Wonder Woman swords, especially in the crossguard pieces. I get that like just under the surface bubbling a bit, and so a lot of the ones that have been started in my videos of breaking swords have been those, because I don't want to send one off to somebody and they sand it like,
right,
like very, very barely, and all of a sudden there's tons of bubbles.
Yeah, they're like, I'm so excited, I'm going to paint this today.
Yeah.
And then they sand it, and they're like,
oh, now I have a whole bunch of filling to do.
That's always a bummer. I'm trying to find the videos where you're driving over your swords.
It should be there.
So to test the strength of, now your swords that you cast, they don't have a metal rod in them or anything, right?
No, they don't.
So
that's when I stepped on.
So this is just urethane.
Yeah.
Just a resin casting. Yeah. And it's
and you can see how far it'll bend before it.
Yeah, before it actually breaks.
And one of the reasons I originally did that was because I had a lot of people, well, how come you don't put cores in there, blah 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 blah, and I was basically like, it's not really necessary.
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't believe me, and I was like, okay, well, here, I'll make a video and show you.
I had something similar.
That's the first one I did where I was just stepping on it and it just bends.
Yep.
But that's a good 1.5 inches.
Oh yeah. Like if that sword does that when you're cosplaying, then you're doing something ridiculous.
Exactly, and that was kind of the point. So, but then my buddy Wayne from Wayne's Workshop was like, now drive it over with your car. So that's where the car one came from. That's the aftermath. There should be, the video will be there. My daughter. It's this one here.
Got it. Let's see. Oh, what browser? There we go. Now, Wayne says. Now
that was my answer to Wayne. So, and it was very uneventful, right? They're just laying on the concrete, and it's like, okay. So then I gave it. It had to have some movement. But that's a 2x4, so there you go. And people hated me when I did that. They're like, I can't believe you're breaking those. I thought it was hilarious. Yeah. Especially when they go shooting off like a.
But that one didn't break.
But 3 of them didn't break.
That's incredible.
I know. How crazy is that?
Cool.
That shocked me. I thought they would all break at. Yeah. So then I made the board taller, and then that did it. Slow mo. The way they go shooting off like rockets just kills me. Yeah. Breaking swords.
That one.
There you go. Yeah.
That is a pretty astonishing amount of pain right there.
I mean, that's 3.5 inches.
Yeah. I took. was funny. I did this anime dagger. It was a commission, and Harrison had done one.
Yeah.
In fact, I just bought his blueprints to make mine. So I made mine, molded and cast it, and I was embedding wires in the blades. It's a knife with 2 blades, like 2 long blades that are parallel. Whoop. And sorry, I just had a burger burp there. We had some burgers for lunch there.
Yeah.
I cast one without wire in it, and I took it and just smacked it as hard as I could against the desk.
Yeah.
And it didn't break. I was like, why am I wasting my time in stuff?
Yeah. And that's where it started for me too. Was the very first couple casts I did, test casts of the Wonder Woman sword when I first started building it. I just took a cast and I just started beating things with it. Right.
Yeah.
And it didn't break until I think it was like on the extension arm of my table saw, which is like cast iron, right?
Yeah.
And until I gave it a really heavy whack on that, they wouldn't break. So
yeah, you can make some fairly durable stuff out there, which with pretty normal, and they make more impact resistant.
Yeah, and that's not even like super high impact stuff.
Yeah. So yeah, durability is rarely an issue. Let's see here. I think if you guys have any more questions in the chat, please feel free to drop them there for us. Again, just tag @PunishProps and we'll see them. There we go. We got one from Murderous. Curious about safety. He got task 2 about a year ago. He's worried about being sensitive to the materials. Room size ventilation is required. I can tell you, well, you should be as safe as possible. You should wear a respirator when you're using any dangerous chemicals, and obviously always read the safety data sheet. I've been casting lots of urethane in my basement.
Yeah.
Never had a problem.
Yeah, me either. And my workshop's in my basement.
Yeah.
So.
Again, I'm not saying that's ideal.
Yeah.
Ideally, you would work in a garage with tall ceilings. If you have
summertime, have the windows open,
the door open, have a fan going,
cross ventilation, all that.
Normally, when we're especially in the basement, at the very least, we would have a fan going, just so that you're not standing over a cup of curing resin and huffing all of it. Yeah, but I am here to tell you that a little bit of urethane isn't gonna kill you. Just be as safe as possible, and go out and get fresh air every once in a while, for sure. And as always, read the safety data sheet. And remember too that like Smooth On, when they're putting out these products, their suggestions are going to be as safe as possible,
overboard,
way
basically.
overboard, which is good. You should aspire to be that safe.
Yes, you should. At the same time, I'm not going to say that I always wear a respirator every time I mess with resins, even though I know I should. Most of it's just I'm in a hurry.
Yeah, I'm going to mix up one little thing. On Smooth On's website over here, they have an FAQ. They have their technical bulletins, SDS or MSDS, if you hear it said that way.
Yes.
That's the thing that's going to give you all the information. So urethane.
And Paige makes a good point. Don't get uncured stuff on your skin.
Yes.
So I always, even if I'm not wearing a respirator, I always wear gloves when I mess with resins.
One of the industrial design professors at SCAD has a urethane allergy now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can develop sensitivities and allergies.
You can.
But anyway, over on Smooth On's website, if I'm using Smoothcast, which is usually what I use, I can look up the data sheet for, let's say, Smoothcast safety data sheet, Smoothcast 300. There you go. There's all the information for you. And Smooth On has contact information. So if you have further questions about any of these materials, they would be happy to help you out. All right, let's grab a couple more questions here before we scoot on out of here. Let's see. Okay, great. We got one from Rainbow Lee. When you first started making cosplays and props, did you ever think you were going to be where you are now? I didn't even know this was possible, so no.
As a matter of fact, no.
And it actually also speaks to how little thought I put into turning what I did into a career.
Yeah, I'll just quit my job and build things for people.
I don't know what all of this is going to look like even a year from now.
Yeah.
A year ago, we had just hired Paige, and we still worked out of our basement. And now everything is different and way more expensive. But awesome.
Well,
really
I just
cool.
watched the video. Was it you with? Was it Modern Rogue you were on? Is that the guys? And so that must have been shot at the beginning of the year, right? Like in January or February or something.
I think it was April.
April, okay. And they were like, "So, where do you think you're gonna be?"
Oh,
whatever. And you're like, "Well, we're ready to move out of our basement and have a new shop and have a few employees." And here you are.
We're here
so
now, yeah.
there you go.
Let's grab another one. Lick Torin says, "Have you ever 3D scanned and printed any body part rather than life casting it?" I have a 3D scan of myself. There was at a convention, a booth in Portland.
Yeah.
RCCC?
I have
Rose City Comic Con.
Rose City.
There we
yeah.
go.
Sorry, I was blinking.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about my print of.
Yeah. I haven't printed it full size yet because I have a life cast. But I could, if I wanted to, print it full size.
I have a print of my head.
Look at that. Oh, it's right there. Go down.
That was like the artistic shot.
Oh.
Let's see here.
You have a more useful shot. There it is. No.
That's why I cut the face off for a mask. Where's the newest one? I thought I had one on here that was a little better. Anyway, and also for
there you go.
This,
I bet there's
this
more
is,
images than that.
This one here though, that's. Oh, there it is on the. That's me, being printed on my printer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was actually also a live scan from Emerald City one year. There was a couple years ago. Shapeify Me was there.
Oh yeah.
And that's a
I think that's
one-to-one.
I think that's the people.
Same
I got
people. And then when we did the Wasp helmet, Beverly had herself scanned, and this is actually a 3D print. That's how I started the sculpt. Was I printed her head, and then this is Evil Ted's foam helmet pattern. I made a foam helmet so that it would be have the correct spacing, because I knew if I made that foam out of whatever size, then it would be the same spacing all the way around. And then I clayed over the top of that.
Perfect.
Bill, we were talking recently about filters in respirators and the right ones to use. Somebody in the chat was asking about respirator.
I have them
filters.
linked to the Bill's Tools page.
Okay.
And the respirators we use are there, and also the filters. The 6001 cartridges are for organic vapor relief. That's
because some work better for vapor than others.
Yeah, some of them it doesn't. It seems like it should be for organic vapor, but it's really just a particulate filter.
Yeah.
It's not going to do you any good.
Yep.
It needs to have activated charcoal in it.
Yep, the charcoal ones are what you need for.
I Make Stuff says, do you have? How do you go about casting a negative? Is there a more direct way than molding and casting a positive, and then remolding and casting to get a negative? So, for example, that's exactly what we did on the visors we made for Adam's spacesuit.
Yeah.
The mold we made is a negative. Now, the way we did it was a little janky because we made a rigid mold of a rigid master, and then the master was destroyed demolding it. We probably could have done it better, but we were short on time, so that's how we did it. So it's possible. It worked, yeah. Just know that, well, there's a couple ways you could do it. Please note that I've never actually done this before. You could make your silicone mold and then spray in your mold release and then pour. I know this is crazy. Make a silicone copy of your part, and then that would be the positive copy in silicone, and then you could put a box around that, and fill that up with urethane, and you have a rigid negative. It is possible to cast silicone out of a silicone mold. Again, I've never done it before.
Yes.
Just make sure you have plenty of mold release.
Lots of mold
release.
release.
The right amount of mold release to get that sucker out of there. Good luck. If you give that a try, please let me know. Let's grab a couple more. Let's see here.
Paige also mentioned use a respirator when working with metal powders.
Yes.
And that is definitely a must.
Absolutely.
Always,
yeah.
if I'm working with metal powders.
Yep.
Because it's literally pulverized metal. So think about breathing that into your body and what that can do to your lungs and your airways.
Well, and the problem with it is that it's heavy, so
Yeah.
it sinks to the bottom of your lungs. So once it's in there, it
once
stays.
it's in there,
it can't get out.
It's
Not coming out. Hey, I think that's going to wrap it up for all the molding and casting questions. Like I said before, if you want to know more about molding and casting, we've got a page for you. If you go over to, we'll go on a quick adventure together. If you go to punishprops.com, I'll bet that I zoomed way too far in. Actual size, there we go. Up at the top, we have techniques. So if you want foam smithing, molding and casting, painting, etc., each one of these pages dives into each one of these topics, and the one for molding and casting is going to be the go-to place for all your molding and casting tutorial videos on the internet.
And it's not Punish Props related, but I will say Smooth On has a really, really good brush on mold video.
Ooh.
That coincidentally they had just put up about a month before I started working on mine.
How handy. Oops,
Yeah,
sorry.
and basically since I had never done a brush on mold before, I basically just followed that to a T.
Which one are we looking at?
I found one that's from January 11th of 2008. It sounds like they might have a...
No, it's a newer one. It's a 2-part one, and the guy's he's doing a casting of an Iron Man helmet.
Ah, yes.
So I don't know what they have it titled as.
Hey, Smooth On hit 100,000 subscribers. Good job, you guys.
Yeah, it's that one there, I think.
So Smooth On has their own YouTube channel. Iron Man. Let's see.
Yeah,
Iron
that's the
Man,
one.
Silicone mold.
Other than I used plastic paste instead of, they use something else.
Yeah.
But it follows the whole. It's long, but it's very informative.
Very good. It's long. It's 10 minutes long.
And also shout out to Nick from Modulus Props, because he was my other resource for getting mine done.
Fantastic.
Because he's done a lot of brush on type stuff.
Very good. If you want to see that, we've got a video doing that exact thing with Nick over
That's
on our
right.
channel.
That's right.
If you want to know more about what Eric's got going on, should we send all the fine people to your wonderful website?
Yeah, I mean, my website, I don't keep on top of it as much as I should. If you want to see what's going on with me, just find me on Instagram.
And look, there's links.
Instagram
right
and
here.
Twitter are really the only two that I've kind of abandoned Facebook at this point.
Yeah.
So
So head on over to Instagram for sure. Give Coregeek a follow. You will not be disappointed.
why, thank you.
Look at that fancy watch band.
Hey, I'm wearing that right
You
now.
are.
Look at that.
Look at that.
Right there.
Thank you so much for hanging out, Eric.
Oh yeah, always a good time.
Yeah, and look forward to a video that we're filming. We're going to finish filming right after this, which I think is going up on Monday.
I have
Yeah.
cool. And
We
Blizzard
don't have
Trucks,
any other videos
Blizzard
ready.
Trucks, I have stickers, so.
Oh, yeah. Are those on your website?
They're not.
Your shop?
They're not.
Oh, how do you get one?
Well, you gotta find me.
Okay, cool. I'll shake you down for.
I need to get a PO box so I can have
Yes.
people send
Yeah,
me.
you do.
Send me. I'll send them a sticker.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again so much.
Yeah, anytime.
Thank
Always
you.
a good time.
Prop Tarts for hanging out with us for the last hour or so. You guys are rad. Keep up the excellent work. I'm looking forward to seeing everything popping up for the Prop Tart Secret Santa. If you want to be involved in that next year, then head to the Prop Tarts Facebook group. Just throwing your phone.
Throwing my phone around.
Head to the Prop Tarts Facebook group. Paige has got a link in the chat for you there. Join up. It's in my opinion, the most fantastic group of prop and costume makers this side of the internet.
It is.
Hanging out over there. And they start the Secret Santa thing early-ish in the year. Because they got their act together. Way more than I do. So, yeah. You're going to have to go on over there and check it out. But I'm excited to see what happens. And also what I get. Because I finished mine. I'm not going to tell you what it is. Mine's getting mailed out, I think, today.
I think next year I'll try to make a commitment to get there. I'm always afraid of running out of time or something.
They usually start it in, like, June.
June, right? Yeah, I know.
All right, that's all for us today. Thank you guys so much. You guys are awesome. Keep it up, and I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.